Hey there, hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to talk about efficiency, right, in general, but also give you some examples of inefficiency that I've seen in various projects that I've worked on, or even for work that I've done for myself. And then, you identify those and you fix them, right, and live and learn, as they say. So let's take a couple of examples to understand what I'm trying to say, or what I want to say better. I've talked about death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to performance more than once, where I've generally said that when you're trying to tune performance issues, you're trying to look for that one big problem, but it's never it's hardly ever the case, right? So you have to make a ton of changes to see those improvements. Keep that in mind, and let's take the same argument line of thought a bit further. So I was in a project once. It was a long time ago. It was day one, actually. A team of, I want to say, maybe 10 12 developers, give or take. So it was I'm just going to keep it generic enough so you get the idea, because the rest of it is a moot point, what stack it is and all of that kind of stuff. So as part of the process of coding and development, you have to write tests, and how you write them differs from stack to stack, team to team, and company to company. So here, as part of code that you wrote, you would write your tests, and then you make it part of your pull requests. The test would actually take about, I want to say, like 1 minute or more, sometimes actually a minute and a half, sometimes even two, to actually get started, fire up. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a number of spring beans, and if you've not mocked enough, then for all of the initial dependencies to load, it's going to actually take a while. Hey there, I'm back here. So the test took about 2 minutes to fire up, to load all of the spring beans, hibernate beans, and all of the dependencies. So say it takes 2 minutes, and depending on the type of coder you are, you might write 10 lines of code and then run the tests, or write 20 lines or 50 lines or 100 lines. The fewer lines you write and test them incrementally, the more efficient it is, at least in my opinion. That's the kind of developer I am. I don't want to write like 200 lines of code without testing and I have no idea what happens, whether it's UI, middleware, backend, doesn't matter. So let's say if you wrote a few lines of code and every 15 minutes or so you ran this test, right? Typically you want the test to take no more than like 5 seconds, give or take, so your code's working, it's doing what you're expecting for it to do. And sometimes you may write the test a little bit later as well. It depends, right? There's a lot of variations there. But regardless, let's say you run these tests every 15 minutes or so. You would have run them 4 times during the course of an hour. And let's say you work a typical 8-hour day, you would have run the test 32 times. Now if it took 2 minutes, it's about 32 minutes, 64 minutes, right? An hour of your day would have spent just twiddling your thumbs, because you're just waiting for the test to run. And maybe it failed, maybe it passed. If it passed, great. If it failed, you might make a change. Maybe there was a typo, maybe there was a code logic error, and you're going to run them, in which case your tests are going to be run even more frequently, right? The 4 times an hour and 32 times in a day was only in the best case scenario where your code actually works, which if it does, great, but a lot of times you have to go back and fix stuff. So in this example, this one developer would have spent about an hour just waiting for that test to run. And you can't really do a whole lot more in that period of time, just because you're waiting for that test to complete. And even though it takes 2 minutes, what else could you possibly do in 2 minutes, right? So you're just waiting for the test to run. So in this example, that developer spent 1 hour in their day just waiting for the test to complete. Okay, so if one developer spends an hour a day just waiting for these tests to run, and in that time they couldn't do anything else but just twiddle their thumbs, in a team of 10 developers, just to take a round number, you're talking 10 hours spent, right? Literally 10 hours spent. Out of the 80 hours, 10 of those hours were spent just waiting for these tests to run. So you get the idea, right? It's super inefficient, right? So when we try to improve processes or methodologies outside of the code quality, right? I'm not talking about code quality here. I'm just talking about the approach to solving problems. And you can take this, even though this example is specific to essentially software development, you can easily extrapolate this to other scenarios as well. So it's important to make sure, it's like wasting water one drop at a time. Make sure you keep an eye on this, because you want to this is really, there's nothing more to say here. It's a lot of wasted time. I'll talk about the other types of areas where time can potentially be wasted, and you may not be, unless you're cognizant of it. And the smaller the teams, the lesser the amount of money you have available to spend, the more important these things become. Now, if you have a lot of money and a lot of people and resources, sure, such wastages it may not hurt you, but it's hard to believe. It may not hurt you in the near future immediately, but I have to believe that it's going to certainly hurt you at some point of time, right? It's going to creep into your revenues and whatnot, and you want to keep your cost to a necessary minimum. So here is just one example of that scenario. Let me continue this video and talk about some more examples. And before we go to the other example, let's see how we could potentially improve the situation where the test took so much time. What can we do to make sure that this is not happening, or we can solve this problem? If a client reached out to you saying, hey, this is a situation we are in, how can you help me, right? Typically that's not going to happen, but you're going to do this as part of your job or your work or whatever it is that you're doing for your client. But it's important to keep this in mind. Let me pick this up in the next video, or maybe I might just stitch them together and publish as a single video. Thank you.